All right, let's talk about the Knicks' start to the season and who exactly this team is after their blowout win against the Pelicans on Sunday with our New York Post sports columnist, Mike Vaccaro. And Mike has a column up on the Post website, so make sure you guys go and check that out. Mike, thanks for jumping on with us early this morning. How you feeling, man?
I'm doing well, Brandon. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. Let's talk about some Knicks basketball. To start the season, they're 12-8, and you wrote in your column that it's clear we haven't seen the Knicks at their consistent best. What grade would you give the new-look roster through 20 wins this season, and 20 games this season, and why?
Yeah, I'd give it a solid B+. Look, it's clear that there's a lot of talent in this rotation. And if they stay healthy, they can play with anybody. That includes the Celtics and the Cavaliers. We've seen it in incredible bursts, like in Phoenix, like in Denver, like against the Bucks at home, against the Pistons in Detroit, which has turned out to be a better win than we thought at the time. But then, there's regressions. I mean, there was the game in Utah where they weren't in the game hardly at all. There was the game against the Mavericks right after the 145-point explosion in Denver where they just looked very flat. And there was the game against Charlotte last Friday, the day after Thanksgiving, where Charlotte, which is a bad team to begin with, was missing 5 of its top 6 players. And the Knicks had to squeak out of there with a 1-point win, playing terribly for 48 minutes. So we've seen both ends of what the Knicks are, but we've also seen, yesterday where, look, if the Knicks wanted to, they could have won by 100 points. We've seen them when they play well, when they shoot well. And I think what's encouraging is, look, even last night, Karl Anthony Towns and OG Anunoby didn't shoot well, but, they're still contributing. Cat's getting 19 rebounds and OG's getting 4 block shots. And I think that's the key, is that not every one of these guys is going to be on their game shooting-wise every night, but they can still be pretty good if everybody does what they do well. And we saw that last night. We've seen that periodically through the first 20 games. And look, these first 20 games were a learning experience, trying to get all these elements to fit together into a whole different team than they're used to or we're used to. I think they're just about where they want to be. Now, of course, the next 20 games, you hope they take another level up, which is to play that well consistently and not have, 2 games on, 1 game off, 2 steps forward, 1 step back.
It sounds like you said the word consistently twice there. So it's a championship-like consistency that this team is waiting for in terms of chemistry and really gelling. So outside of consistency, in your opinion, what's the biggest thing or things that the Knicks need to show that they can hang with the Bostons and the Clevelands?
Yeah, I just think what they need really is to solidify the familiarity they have with each other. And I think that's what I'm most impressed with so far. These are guys who, a lot of the 2 major elements of the team, in Mikal Bridges and Karl Anthony Towns, were not even on the team last year. The others all had different roles. Even Jalen Brunson, who was a lot, less of a relied upon scorer now, more of a distributor, and he's taken some time to get used to that element of it also. So I think once they get more familiar with those roles, I really do think the sky is the limit. I mean, we've really only kind of scratched the surface of what they're capable of doing and being. And I think it's a great test on Tuesday night against Orlando, which is young and fast and athletic and playing great. They've won 12 out of 13. And it's a really good benchmark, I think, for where the Knicks are. Get the game at home, which is going to be helpful. If they win the game, they get to proceed on to the NBA Cup quarterfinals. I mean, that means more to some people than to others. But I do think it means something to the players who get compensated for it. So I think that'll be a really, one of the first real interesting tests of this team now that they've got 20 games under their belt.
Let's go even deeper on that Magic game. It also kicks off the second quarter of the season. You mentioned some of the good things that the Magic are doing. They're 15-7. They've won 6 in a row. 3rd best record in the East. Would you say that this is a must-win game in terms of confidence and kind of gauging how good this Knicks team is?
I'll say it's a must-play-well game.
Okay.
If they wind up losing 113 or 111 in a classic game that just goes down the wire, I mean, it's going to be hard to complain. It's still only game 21 of the regular season. You have to keep that in mind. But I do think that what they want to see is that against a good team, that the way they've developed as a team themselves is going to work. Because, look, I think the Magic and the Knicks are going to be fighting for the 3 seed the entire season, if not for the 2 seed, assuming the Cavaliers come back a little bit. And so it's a real benchmark game for them. I mean, I think we're starting to see the real hierarchy in the Eastern Conference, and the Knicks and the Magic, I think, are in the top 4, along with the Celtics and the Cavaliers. The Cavaliers and the Celtics are, maybe a step higher, so there may be a big 2 right now. But there's still 62 games to go, and still so much of the story to be written. And obviously, teams have to stay healthy. And the Magic is missing Vaccaro right now, which is, hasn't affected them at all the last 13 games. But these are the kind of games I think you measure yourself against. The Knicks understand, who they're playing. If they didn't, look, the Magic took care of the red-hot Nets this weekend, beat them twice. So that was a reminder also.
And it's an NBA Cup game as well, so those have been pretty cool throughout the course of this NBA season. Mike Vaccaro, thanks for joining us today, man. You're a legend.
Hey, Brandon, great talking to you. Thanks a lot.